the Eli Gold situation at the University of Alabama. So Eli Gold, and these days are gone. And I want to go back to the John Ward days. And a lot of the games, Eli Gold, the former voice of the Alabama football program, longtime former voice, a lot of these radio broadcasts were your connection with the team because not all games were televised. That's why people turn down the volume on TV and they listen to John Ward. Now, that doesn't happen nowadays, but Eli Gold is one of the last for that. And I know a lot of fans have been excited by the fact that Alabama is falling apart. Hit like if you're one of those. Be sure and subscribe. We greatly appreciate that. But I gotta be honest with you. I've waited, and now the waiting is done. You have a crew that is taking, I believe, the Philip Fulmer approach when he was athletic director and cleaning house, a little bit like Dave Hart, too, who's asked to clean house because they had so many associate athletic directors. But this is where you cross the line to me. You don't bring Eli Gold back, to say maybe a couple of $100,000? That's your play-by-play voice. So you can pay a guy that's 30 years old, you can pay him $50,000. And he comes out and he has to say publicly, I'm not retired, I wasn't fired. Or I'm not retired, I was fired. And then he fought cancer last year. Caleb, how do you fire somebody that's been the voice of your program for 20 years and fought cancer last year, and the fan base rallied behind him? What is going on at the University of Alabama?
Yeah, so Eli Gold has been their play-by-play broadcaster since 1988. The way Alabama reported it was that they had agreed to part ways, so he won't return in 2024. He comes out and says, we didn't agree to part ways. They wanted me gone, basically, was what he said. They're not bringing me back. Here's what I think is happening. In an age of NIL, Moneyball is going to be the way to go for a lot of people. You are going to see a lot more cuts to things that many fans may have been passionate about. But
are you telling me they're cutting Eli to add a prospect? Is that what you're going after?
Yes. I think that is, how much is Eli Gold's salary right now, would you say?
I'm going to complete guess. $250,000 a year.
Okay. And you're saying they're going to hire somebody at 60, 190 grand.
Probably 70, 80. So let's say that they save 150.
That's 2 prospects every year on the recruiting trail. But guys, I get it. And before any of you guys try to correct me, I know schools don't pay players on the recruiting trail, but guys, it's all in the same pot because the schools make their decisions based on booster money and donor money. That donor money is not going to come in the way it usually does because they need that donor money to be spent on players with advertisements. So look, I got to be honest. I think that's what this is about. And I think I've told you guys for a while now, Alabama athletic director Greg Byrne, I can tell you what's happening. He's very upset with the lack of NIL support he's getting from his boosters. I think he's very upset with it. And I think he's trying to sit there and make a note to say, guys, I'll have to nuke this whole thing if you don't pony up some money. Because I need NIL money.
Well, maybe that's it. And maybe they get a little bit more off him, but it's not worth it. On the message board, I believe it was Bet It Hurts their fan base. Yeah, I think it does. I think you're used to hearing Eli. You fought for him to get back in the booth last year with the cancer diagnosis. I love him. I think he's just a great guy. I hate to see how that would be connected, but perhaps it would. What would have happened if John Ward had been fired, Caleb? You
have to understand that Tennessee is a little more unique than Alabama, and this is why John Ward is such a big deal. And he listens to the show. So I'm going to mention my dad, who told me when I was growing up, he would listen to Tennessee sports on the radio when he was young, living in Memphis, when nothing was on TV, in the 60s and 70s. That was John Ward's voice. Tennessee is so spread out as a state. It's 3 separate states, 3 separate regions. The voice of John Ward was the only connection you could have to the school if you lived in Memphis, really. or if you lived in Nashville even growing up.
Sure.
That's not necessarily the same. That's not necessarily the same power that radio broadcasters have in other states. Because John Ward was the only thing to connect the whole state of Tennessee, which is, for anybody who knows, as everybody who lives in Tennessee knows, is 3 separate states. I mean, they have 3 stars on the flag because
but
they
I
represent
knew
3 regions.
Yeah, but I knew who Larry Munson was at Georgia. I mean, and that's because he's the play-by-play guy for Georgia that retired.
Yes, but he did not have his reach wasn't as significant as John Ward's reach was. I mean, where's Georgia? For the longest time, until about 10 years ago, Tennessee's biggest city was Memphis, the other side of the state. How else could they connect to Knoxville outside of John Ward in the 60s and 70s? The biggest city in Georgia has always been Atlanta.
But I've been driving home from Starkville and heard Larry Munson. I mean, that was a big one. But point being, is that just done? Are we just done with that? Nothing against Bob Kessling and the job he does or does not do on the broadcast, but are they just meaningless? Is that era gone? I mean, I have trouble arguing with you if you tell me that nixing a play-by-play guy, I think you should find the money. But if you're going to tell me it brings you 2 prospects, then I have a hard time arguing not to do it. But I think the goodwill that they burned getting rid of Eli just cost them more money than they ever would have gained out of his salary in NIL.
You're right. That's very possible. There could be some boosters very upset about it. Look, guys, here's something that's happening. I am spitballing. It's conspiracy theory Caleb time. I got another one today because I know y'all love conspiracies. What if there are a few boosters who don't like Eli Gold and a few who do, and some were saying, I'll pony up more money if you get rid of Eli Gold? I'm just throwing some things out there.
No, that's not. There were a few people who didn't like John Ward.
Yes, but booster power wasn't as important as it is now.
No, I agree. But no. I'm just saying John Ward was about as likable as any play-by-play guy you could have. I thought he was down the middle, but you could tell he rooted for the team that was paying his salary. Larry Munson was, we've got to hunker down. We've got to do this.
We stepped on their faces with a hobnail boot. Yeah.
It was just over the top. But there were some people that didn't like John Ward. I don't know if they arrange a coup to have him fired, but
John Ward had the fun sayings for Tennessee specifically because that's what you do when you're covering for a team. But yeah, John Ward was the most professional broadcast. Look, I thought every broadcaster was like that. Honestly, it was like John Ward. I was shocked when I first heard, and I remember being like 14 and hearing Larry Munson do the whole broadcaster when Georgia beat Tennessee, and he said we. I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, you never say we for who you're covering. That's like journalism 101, isn't it, Dave? You don't say we.
We finished up, you and me, not we, me and Tennessee. You and me finished up a show one time. I hopped in the car and I wanted to go watch I think it was the Georgia-Alabama game. And I'm so focused in on Tennessee stuff, I really don't see what's happening. So I just want to find the score, and I found Munson's broadcast. I knew it was a field goal game. I didn't know who was leading. The whole time we drove to this Dave & Buster's, actually, I didn't know the score. With John Ward, you would have known the score. The national championship is clad in big orange.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I totally agree. It's John Ward would say who's leading. Now, I know there's a little bit of an art to not say who's leading, but give the score or something like that, and then go to commercial break because you want people to keep listening. And so you don't want them to just wait on the score. You want them to stay tuned in. But yeah, no, I agree. A lot of broadcasters would do that. Now, I will say that, again, I don't know where this is going. I mean, we are in an here's the other problem, Dave. We're in the age of turning down your TV to listen to the broadcast is dead. And the reason that's dead more than anything is because the radio broadcast is always going to be much quicker than the TV because most people are streaming now.
Yeah.
So, you're going to hear them broadcast a play that's a minute in advance. And so that was kind of a big problem. That became a problem actually with digital cable in the late 90s. Digital cable, particularly after the freak out over Janet Jackson, decided let's do a 7-second delay of anything that's live. And
I still have never been a part of I watched that Super Bowl by myself and my phone just absolutely blew up. My wife and I got a chalet. I'll never forget the Janet Jackson Super Bowl. Everybody else probably has a good memory. It was just me and my wife by ourselves with our kids upstairs asleep.